Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda, and today I have for you my top 10 worst or lowest rated reads of 2018. So I'm actually pretty proud to say that in 2018 I didn't have any book that was rated under a 2-star. I did have a couple that I didn't rate, but it wasn't because they weren't any good or that I DNF'd them. They were just short stories or stories that I really didn't know how to rate. So I am going to go through the 10 books, and I had exactly 10 that I rated a 2-star. So the first two books are from the Artemis Fowl series by Eoin Colfer. I've got the Atlantis Complex and The Last Guardian that I rated 2 stars. These books were, up to a certain point, were rereads for me. They were a middle grade series that I had read quite a bit of when I was younger and then never finished the series. So now that the series was complete, I decided to pick them up and do a reread on audiobook and really enjoyed them for the most part. There were just a couple that I felt were more of a 2-star read instead of a 3-star or 4-star. So those are the first two. And then we've got Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and I think Terry Pratchett or Pritchard or Picker or Terry P. something or other. The only reason I finished this book, and honestly it probably should have been rated a 1-star, but the only reason I finished it is because I read it for one of the prompts for the Magical Readathon. I think it was for divination, so a book that contained a prophecy. And I really just did not like this book. I don't know if it was the format I read, but I've also kind of noticed that Neil Gaiman books just I don't connect very well with them. I read Nevermore or Neverwhere, Never something or other, and I liked that book. But then I read American Gods and Good Omens, and I didn't like either of those. So I just think he's an author that I probably don't really care for his writing style. So then I read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which I also gave a 2-star rating. I read this on audiobook, and it was, I guess it was decent for what it was, but it being kind of a dystopian style book with corrupt government, I was expecting more out of it, kind of like the feelings that 1984 by George Orwell gave me, and that this book just didn't hit home as much as I had kind of wanted it to. It felt not as realistic of a society as the society in 1984, so it was just a book that I expected more out of than what I was given, so I was a little disappointed with it. So moving on, the next book I rated a 2-star was The Jansen Directive by Robert Ludlum. This is a book that Skylar really wanted me to read for quite some time. And the book itself and Robert Ludlum's writing aren't bad. They're just not the types of stories that I really like. It's, what is he? Is he... I don't know, but it's kind of like that Dan Brown kind of vibe where I don't like the government style books like that. I don't like mystery, political mystery, weird things like that. They're just not books that I enjoy reading. So that's a book that it was the subject matter, not so much the format I read it in or the author or the writing style or anything like that just didn't sit well with me. So then I've got a contemporary book that I did not enjoy so much, and I know this book is kind of, it's got pretty polar opposite viewpoints. You either really like it or you don't like it, and that's Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli. I believe last year I listened to Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, and then this year I read The Upside of Unrequited, and they're all Creekwood books. I think that's what the series is called. But Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda and The Upside of Unrequited are more distant than Leah on the Offbeat is. Leah on the Offbeat follows one of Simon's best friends, Leah. And I think the picture that I had painted in my head of Leah when I was reading Simon was completely different from what came out of reading the book based on her. And she just wasn't a very likable character. I don't feel like she developed in either a good or a bad way. She just wasn't a very nice person. So I didn't enjoy it as much as I was kind of hoping that I would. So yeah, but again, I know a couple people that did seem to enjoy it. So the next book I have is actually a graphic novel, and that is Black Hole. I believe the author is Charles Burns. And I read this because my friend was moving and she had it. And when I read it on the synopsis on Goodreads, it sounded intriguing. I knew it was a book that involved like STDs and kids in school, and it was supposed to be set in Washington. I think it was set sometime in the 70s or something like that. So when kids were getting into some not great things. But this graphic novel was so strange. It was... I don't really even know what to say about it, honestly. You followed a couple different characters and just kind of them dipping their toes into different things and catching certain things, and how they were kind of ostracized by their peers, and it was just very graphic. So like you wouldn't normally be able to tell when somebody has an STD or STI, but in this graphic novel, how it was represented was people were like growing tails or had like big boils on their faces or had horns. It was really interesting, but not in a good way. So yeah, that happened. And then another book that I gave 2 stars was Annihilation, and I don't even remember who the author of this was. I had heard that it was a little bit confusing to follow, and I basically picked it up because Skylar bought the movie and we wanted to watch it, but I wanted to read the book before watching the movie, and it was just a really confusing book. I'm not really even sure what happened during it, and I felt the same when I watched the movie, that it was really confusing. I think Skylar enjoyed the movie somewhat. Yeah, he's shaking his head yes. But I don't know, just not one of the better books that I read this year. And then moving back into the middle grade genre, I gave City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab, or Victoria Schwab is her middle grade and young adult, I think. I gave that a 2 out of 5-star rating on Goodreads. This is another book I listened to on audiobook, and I was kind of hoping for a lot more from it than what it was given. And I understand why she explained things the way she did, just because the audience was targeted towards kids who haven't traveled as much. But the main character and her family go to Edinburgh, Scotland, and just the way she explained things, and like kind of how, oh, they talk differently than us. This word means this, and this word means this, or they do this differently. It was just really redundant and got kind of annoying to listen to. So I didn't really enjoy it that much. I think it's being turned into a series, and I don't know if I'm going to continue with it, just because, I don't know, I didn't enjoy it enough. And then the last 2-star rating I had was Dashing Through the Snow by Debbie Maycumber. And this was kind of, not really an insta-love story, but it was a really fast-burn love story, and it was about this man and woman who are trying to get a flight out from San Francisco Airport to SeaTac. The girl's trying to surprise her mom for Christmas, and the gentleman is trying to make a job interview for this job that he really wants. She ends up being on the do not fly list. The only way he can travel is by standby, and he doesn't want to take the risk. They both end up at the one car rental agency that has one car available, and end up deciding to split the journey. And all your typical tropes, everything bad that you could think of to happen to get them up from San Francisco to Seattle happened. And it was just, you know, I can do the cheesy Hallmark type movies, and I know this one was turned into a Hallmark movie, but this one was just bad. I did not enjoy it, and usually I can kind of enjoy the fluffy contemporary Debbie Maycumber books a little more, but this one just wasn't doing it for me. So that is all of my worst reads for the year. Overall, I'd say they're not too bad, and only having 10 that were rated 2-star is pretty good, especially since I think I'm at like 92 books for the year right now. So that is it. If you had any books that you read that also didn't sit very well with you, please do let me know down in the comments below, and I will chat with you there until my next video. Bye!